Welcome, citizens. We are participating in a board. This is your board of commissioners, county commissioners, and we're participating with the Board of Election. And as soon as that stream comes upon itself, we will we'll start the combination meeting. And with us, we have our commissioners here together. We also are joined by Commissioner Owens and Commissioner Jones.
Commissioner Owens is not able to make it today.
I'm sorry, not Commissioner Owens. I
Jones.
thought he and Commissioner Jones were together, but
No. Hello? I can't read my best too far away. I need my glasses for that. Jonathan, can you hear us? Ms. Hill, can you hear us?
I can hear you. This is Jonathan.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening.
Somebody else coming in.
No. So what? Yes, they heard us. But we're gonna mute you again and try to call the Board of Elections office one more time.
Melissa,
Claudia, this is Natalie. We can
can y'all
hear
hear
you.
us pretty good?
Yes. Who's in the room with you?
Hold on, I'm gonna have to turn my volume up. Say that again.
Who's in the room with you?
The board.
More specifically, we can see two people.
Oh, wait a minute. Let me get up and fix this camera.
It's Mr. Sears.
Mr. Sears, Ms. Cross, Mr. Ewer, Ms. Sims.
Okay, we know Ms. Hill has joined by phone, and here at the Board of Commissioners is Commissioner Freeman, Commissioner Hopper, Commissioner Reddick, and Commissioner Jones has joined by phone as well.
Okay. So who can you not see?
We only see Mr. Sears, and I'm sorry, I don't remember who you said was sitting with Mr. Sears.
Mr. Sims, Ms. Karen Sims.
Yes, those are the only two we can see, but that's okay. I understand, are you using the camera that's on your computer?
Yeah.
Okay, then you're probably not gonna be able to see them unless they were to sit behind that table. So as long as if they speak, what we had to do one other week, Commissioner Reddick could not be seen. We found out later, so people you'll have to say who it is that's speaking when you're answering a question.
I don't think we're gonna kill each other. I'm sitting nowhere. You can sit right there. Because Melissa and I did this earlier and they were all like visible. Yeah. Okay. 6 feet social distancing. Okay.
Who's that one over there that we can't see?
Then it's Mr. Ewer.
Right here in this corner, you might see
Yeah,
it.
that's Wade. I know there's two men, so that's Mr. Ewer. And that's Ms. Cross that just sat down, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I think you can you see?
Is that Anthony's son is on the other
He's
side?
not on the board, but he's there, but he's not a Board of Elections member.
Okay.
But Melissa said, yes, he is there. So whenever you're ready to start the meeting.
Yes, I'm ready to start the meeting. I'll turn it over to the county manager since she has an idea.
It was my recommendation at the last Board of Commissioners meeting for the Board of Election and the Board of Commissioners to meet to discuss fiscal year 21 budget going forward, since this is going to be a very tight budget year, so that the Board of Commissioners can hear the needs as related to COVID going forward for the election. I know Clatia and I spoke, and she said she had a little bit of information from the State Board of Election. And we're gonna get together with Kim Outland, our finance officer, who could not be here tonight, to look over what is needed and the funds that are available through various sources to pay for some of the things that might be needed going forward with the election. But we also wanted to talk about any other things, such as the number of one stops that might be coming forward, paper ballots, additional paper ballots due to absenteeism that might be needed, and things like that. So if someone from the Board of Election, Clatia or Mr. Sears or someone, if you'd like to let us know what would be needed for the elections as far as you're aware, that would be COVID related.
Well, this is says, as we're meeting here today, according to the news, the legislature is in session, was in session today to talk specifically about the cost of mail-in ballots, because that's one of the issues that they were discussing, whether or not to go to an all mail-in ballot situation for November, because we have no idea where the pandemic is going to be by November. And that would obviously be a significant increase of if all the ballots were mailed in.
And if we do mail in, this Clatia, if we do mail in and in person, of course you'll need the barrier, the sneeze guards, your mask, sanitizer, mask, gloves, and probably staffing for each individual assignment as well. So we'll probably need what everyone else will need, I guess, on the norm when they're trying to open up business for that, as with the exception of extra staffing to handle those tasks as well.
Mr. Sears and Board, this is Ray Freeman. I was wondering, and we talked about it as commissioners, and not actually knowing, has the state mandated or have they said anything about extra funds because of this COVID-19 issue?
Now, I'm just going by what I heard on the news.
Speak up.
Mr. Sears, hold on one moment. They do not have an external microphone. The only microphone they have at their site is the one on the computer. So, and I'm checking, Melissa has this one turned up as far as it'll go. So, but Mr. Sears, if you could speak a little bit louder, please.
Do I need to come up to where?
Yeah, come up here.
You know,
Maybe you can't see me now, but can you hear me?
Can you hear me better?
no.
She said no.
Commissioner Hoffler says she can't hear you.
I hear,
We're gonna see if we can rig up a microphone here or something.
Okay, yes, we can hear you right
we
now.
can hear you now.
She said she could hear him. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, so you can hear me now?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Well, got now where I was.
Saying about the board, the meeting of state with the.
Oh, okay. Yeah, now, as far as I know, yeah, all of the states, including North Carolina, were to receive additional allocations. And this was going to be based on some sort of formula, I guess, with regard to how many voters you had and that kind of thing. So obviously there would be some monies, but we have no idea how much. And what what resources would be indicated as COVID funds to cover various things that the board might have.
All right, thank you, sir. Do you have a guesstimate or an estimate, might be a better word, of how much additional funds it would take for what you and your elections board need?
Okay, is it gonna go out beyond what the budget was? I mean, the budget was the starting point. So how much beyond the budget? I mean, how much budget did we have to cut out or what?
Yes, sir. I think that's the question. How much additional funds do you anticipate would be needed if you were to have additional mail-in ballots? Would you take the money from a position, from poll workers, and put it towards the mail-in ballots, so it would be a wash? Or do you anticipate needing additional funds for workers as well as additional funds for mail-in ballots? We know there's going to be a cost for the plastic shields, those sort of things. So outside of that, I think I think the commissioner's talking about manpower and paper ballots.
And we kind of discussed all those things, and I know the county manager brought to our attention that if we did a mail-in, then there may not be as many people needed at the polls. And do you expect, just through all of your folks that work there, do you expect the attendance to be the same?
We see one of the situations. If I could step off into, let's think about a regular election. The number of ballots that we would be required to have would be 100% of the registered voters. Now, we've never had more than 50% show up for an election, but we'd be required to have 100% of the ballots. So how many ballots would we want to cover the mail-in? 100% of the ballots. I mean that's what we'd have to budget for. I mean, I wouldn't know any other figure.
Yes, sir. I really hadn't looked at it that way, but that does make sense, that if you're required to have 100% without that, then you want 100% for mail-in too. So,
and of course we know we wouldn't use that, but I mean, you know, on election day you couldn't go get any more ballots.
I understand very well. Thank you for enlightening me on that and educating me on that, because I didn't know that process. Any questions?
Well, Mr. Sear, since we, of course, it's just a shot in the dark as how everything's going to fall like. However, with the anticipation that will be maybe more mail-in ballots, do you think you would need to have as many early sites? Last time we had 3 for the primary, or 2, well, 3. Do you think, would you anticipate having to have 3 in the November election?
Okay, how many voters here in Gates County do we want to accommodate with one site, one stop? If all of the voters came, how would we be able to manage? We'd still have to manage for 100% of the possible voters.
Well, I think you understand that the situation that all of us are in every department that we're in, and looking back at the primary, can you give us numbers of how many people were at each of those besides the Board of Elections in Gatesville, how many people went to those Ida Gatesville sites?
But you do have to realize now that at the sites that we had in March, what we had a budget for was one site. and we simply spread the resources that we had so that we were able to do 3 sites. Didn't ask for any more money. So I mean, what was, I mean, so the number of folk who came shouldn't have any effect on what the budget was.
If I may, you did have to move money, even though the budget was not, it did not require outside funding source or a fund balance allocation. There was money taken from other lines within the Board of Elections to account for the poll workers, because as we had a discussion, what was that, was it last year, Clatia, about if they earn over a certain amount, $1,800, they have to be put on payroll.
That was a HR decision. I don't know. She said something about the county will be penalized. So that's when we start putting poll workers under like the part-time temp status, I guess, so the county would not be penalized. But those monies that were moved because of the hours that the state required us to have one stop open. If the hours are only from 8 to 5, it probably would have been okay for those poll workers to work as regular poll workers tax-free. But because of those 10 and 11-hour shifts, it automatically took a lot of people over that 1,800. And I don't know if the transactions are looked at the same, but when you say that we had to move monies, I just look at it like moving money from my savings to my checkings, but it's still my money. So I don't know if that's a big thing, or am I looking at it the wrong way when we have to move monies, or do I need to always have the accurate amount in each line so that we won't have to move? Like, is that?
Well, no, I'm just making a statement that there was money moved between your lines, so that people, to be clear, that we did not allocate initially a total of $18,000 for the one stop and election day. That was not the original budget. The original budget in July was, I'm gonna get back to that screen, $15,000.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir, go ahead.
and Board of Elections, this is Jonathan. To sort of piggyback on Commissioner Hopler's question, the numbers of early voting was a concern that came up by fellow commissioners at our last commissioners meeting. And with what I'm looking at, and I know Clatia, you can look at it in a prettier version than I am, or can. Is it true that less than 100 voters voted at the Gates site and the Blanchard's Grove site during the entire 2 weeks of early voting?
Incorrect. You said less than 100?
Based off of my fuzzy math, it looks like close to 100 or so.
Gates Brewington Club had more than 100. I think we ended, now you may be talking about Blanchard's Grove, which is a new site, but they didn't reach 100. Everyone else reached 100.
If I could, I guess one of the points.
And at each of the off-campus sites, how many workers do you have to have to man those sites? How many workers do you have to have?
How many did I have, or how many am I supposed to have?
How many are you?
Technically, we're supposed to have 6. We're supposed to have 6. They will give us an option to do 4 because they realize poll workers are hard to find. And if you have to, you can go down to 3, but that's bare minimum. So that means those 3 have to be on their P's and Q's at all times.
Listen to this and consider this. The number of folk who come to the one-stop site has nothing to do.
Commissioner Jones, did you have any other questions, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize, Clytia. There was a Democrat and a Republican primary. So my math shows that 125 people voted for the presidential contest, if that's correct, at the Gates Board of Election. So it would be a little over 100
At the Board of Elections, are you talking
at the Gates Ruleton Club. Sorry.
You said 125?
Yeah, that's the Democrat and Republican. I just pulled up I just pulled up. I had the Democratic and Republican number of votes, which I figured more people voted for. So a little over 100. So I apologize for my incorrect math.
I think we were about 177, if I'm not mistaken. I think we were pretty close to 200 at that Ruleton Club, but I'll get you the numbers. I guess if you need it for reports or whatever, I'll get the exact numbers. But Mr. Sears was saying something right then, and I think one of you guys cut him off.
Madam Director, Ray Freeman here. In the mailing in of ballots, what do you anticipate is any hitches or any problems that'll come about with that?
Our postal service.
Yeah. The mail service
Oh,
itself.
mail service, that's very good.
That's gonna, our past elections, I have seen where absentee ballots have gone from this office 2 weeks prior to the election and don't come back until 2 weeks after the election. That is, by 2 weeks after each election, the election's already finalized. So some ballots were not counted because of the postal services, the way it's actually operated, how it has to go up and come back down. And a lot of people get discouraged by that. So I'm not sure if the state will even require us to stick to straight mail-in only. That will probably be a higher cost, and we may do more than what we normally do. But I'm absolutely sure you still have those old senior citizens that want to show up on election day in person to make their vote count.
Would you have to purchase any additional equipment such as a calculator or printer or anything that you anticipate because of that mail-in?
No, it'll be cost. There may be labels that our vendor or the state requires us to have our envelopes to look a certain way. They do that normally each election. What we'll try to do is cover up what we already have to improvise to save money. If they require us to do brand new envelopes because of the COVID and different instructions, then we will have to order that as well.
Very well, thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Any questions, commissioners? Madam County Manager, any?
No.
No. Does your board have any questions for us?
I guess Anthony Saunders, party chair. I would just like to interject that I talked with party chairs in Northeastern North Carolina. We are expecting a large turnout in November. And I know we're talking about sites or early voting sites, how many to get, but we are really, with all the rhetoric that's going on, and I'm sure y'all see it on TV, radio, like everybody else, we are anticipating a large number of people to be voting in November.
And speaking of that, Mr. Saunders, what is generally, Mr. Sears or someone else can chime in too, please. What is the normal percentage of voters we have come to the polls on each election?
Highest number we've had in the last 15, 20 years was in 2018 with the off-year elections. We had 49%. We had 49% turnout.
A lot of our turnout has a lot to do with local races. March, we didn't have any commissioners that were on the ballot. The only local race that affected us, I guess, was NC House 5. But if there were contested races amongst our local offices, the turnout was always higher. And I think that was the year of the sheriff's race that made that turnout as well.
Somewhere, and I know this is not correct, but that's why I was asking the question. Somewhere I heard in the neighborhood of 22 to 27%. So that's not correct.
For the March election this year, it was a little under 30. It's like 20, 28, 29%.
15 years. In the past 15 years, the highest. And we weren't saying that it was this election, it was the highest.
And because of this election year and also these issues that our country and all of our citizens, including you and me and the rest of us, do you anticipate there being more action at the ballot because of the mail-in ballot versus going to the poll?
Not really, I don't, because the thing that Clayton just spoke about races, contested races on the local level is what drives out turnout.
Very well.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
Clatia, would you, did you say it's 6 total workers combined for all 3 early voting sites or 6 per site? What?
No, it's supposed to be 6 per site. You're supposed to have 3 judges and 2 or 3 assistants. Technically, that's what we're supposed to do. In the years past, we have been working with the bare minimum to save our budget. So I've had a couple of sites in March that we only had 3 people.
Gotcha. Thank you, ma'am.
And cutting that, excuse me, Commissioner Jones, and cutting that mandated amount or maximum from 6 to 3 is about as slim as you can cut it. Am I correct on that?
Absolutely. But at the same time, when you cut those numbers, you're putting the elections at risk, because it's not going to be done as accurate. You're putting a lot of pressure on 3 people where it's supposed to be 6 people. So mistakes happen. Election day is only one day. It's nothing you can take back. Once it's done, it's done.
Very well. So that tells me and makes me realize once again that someone else is much smarter than I. That's why we have a board of commissioners and a board of elections.
Ms. Cross has her hand up. She wants to speak. You gotta take your mask off. Nobody's gonna be able to hear it.
Can you hear me?
I'm sorry, what you say?
We cannot hear her.
I told her to take her mask off, but she might have to come closer now.
Can you hear me now? Okay, we're watching the other elections. I think the last ones that they had, like in Wisconsin and so forth, with COVID-19, you will need, she said the 6, you definitely will need those 6, if not more, because you have to have more protection, people making sure that people are standing the 6 feet apart and so forth, and that I think they're washing their hands and so forth. So we want to make sure that we do have an election. We want to make sure that the individuals in Gates County will have a chance to come out and vote, whether it's the one stop or if they want someone just want to go to the poll on voting day. The presidential elections, and especially this one, as we've said before, there will be a big turnout. No ifs and buts about it. So we in Gates County, we want to make sure that we are prepared for everyone who would desire to come out and vote. It's very important.
Very well.
Okay.
Commissioners, any concerns or comments or questions?
When do you think that the state will come out with exactly what they're going to do to finalize the plans for the November election?
On a wing and a prayer, just like everybody else. They don't know what's going from day to day. And right now, and I think I shared with Natalie that they did tell us in a webinar a couple of weeks ago that any materials purchased for COVID, such as masks and sanitizer and those things, especially certain equipment that we need to wipe down the voting machine every time a voter puts a ballot in. They said that they will reimburse the counties with the funding that they are receiving at the state level. So it wouldn't be anything to hurt our budget here in the county locally.
Thank you. And we've been assessing some of that as the budget hearings and as we have discussed with the county manager and what she brings forward to us, because some of that is reimbursable. I believe there are two separate accounts that there's a potential that it could come from for whichever status that something's being paid for is used. So thank you.
This is Sears. One other point I'd like to make. If you stop and think about the number of workers in the polling place, either during one stop or on election day, we really ought to have somebody, but now we're talking about 13 hours, the polling place would be active and open. Surely during that much time, somebody ought to come into the place and sanitize the whole place. I mean, at least 2 or 3 times during the day.
That is something that other counties, I know some counties in our district here on the East Coast, they are looking into companies to come in and actually go in the day before election and clean each polling place. I know here that will need, this is a one full-time person office. So I would need poll workers if that's the case. Or that company, if we want to avoid the company, we would need poll workers to go out and do that. If we don't want to do poll workers, then we would need our building and grounds crew to go out and do it on behalf of the county. I don't know, but that's something that other counties are doing as well to make sure that we are prepared for the elections with this COVID-19 going on.
Thank you for sharing that. I had not read that, and I was not aware that there were companies that were planning to do that. I think Dr. Riddick maybe has.
I have, Finance Chairman Chesbrough. Kantia, it might be a good idea to put together a draft plan.
Okay.
Of what you think is needed so that we all be aware and then we can prepare for it. You know, we're sitting here talking as I'm listening, you know, new things are coming to everyone's mind and you know, and forgive me, but sometimes I think they forget that I'm new. And so you're talking things that I don't know much about, but I do know we need a plan, a draft plan, so we can work together to make sure that this election is come to fruition and that it's as efficiently and as safe as it can be. So I just make a suggestion from where I sit that a draft plan that we both can share, the Board of Commissioners and executives, so that we can look at it, and if we can help in any way, maybe we can think of something to see what the proposed budget might be, how many workers, what it's going to cost. Cleaning, we hadn't thought of that. I have thought about it because we're doing the same thing where I work. So if Chairman Freeman thinks so, I think a draft plan that we can share amongst ourselves to get ready sooner than later would be a good idea.
Absolutely.
Good idea.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Can I add a comment in, I guess, when it's time for you guys to consider our budget, especially elections? Can you look at the budget as if it's an election year where you are running for re-election and you got 3 other people running against you? You already know how nervous you feel when others are running and that whole process. Would you want to slight the elections budget because it don't look like anything is important going on? Or would you want to make sure we have everything that we need to carry out an election successfully, accurate, and effective if your name was on the ballot. Because I can tell a difference in a lot of years depending on locally how these elections are ran. So
Yes,
can we
ma'am,
just,
I'll have, if we'll have each commissioner, comment on that, but myself, the Board of Elections is recognized not only by the state of North Carolina, but by the federal government itself as being so important, and how it's collected and how it's done, and it is funded and it is mandated. So, I'll stop there and turn it over.
Well, I'm running, so it is important to me. I want to active kind of, the vote. And I think I want it from the top to the bottom, an accurate count. If we had dog catcher, I still want an accurate count for the dog catcher, and all that. But as saying that, I also want the, security of the election process. And if you have read that, there is concern with these mail-in ballots about fraud, that it's a more likely chance of that. And so that is concerning to me. I do for those.
Whether I'm running or not, I'm a voter. And it's very important that we vote and let the citizens know that it is important to vote no matter if someone they know is running or not. That's their right to vote. And the security is important as well as the health concern. Public health is number one. If people don't feel safe going out to vote, they're not. So if we can show them by working together on a draft plan and share that with the citizens of Gates County, these are the plans we have put in place for voting day. And they will see that, whether it's one-stop shop or whatever. And that also gives confidence in the citizenry that it's safe to come out because we are doing what we're supposed to do to protect them. So it is important on election day or leading up to election day that we have the citizens understand that no matter who's running, whether it's for president or local or, like you said, dog catcher, elections are important and we should do everything we can to make sure that it's secure, that it's safe, that it's fair, it's equitable. I know you said something about the post office. I don't know what we can do about that except for just say something about it every chance we get.
well, they're working on a level. I'm sorry to cut you. They're working on this past election. They have been working with their regional from Greensboro. With each election office, I think that problem has reached the state level and they have kind of put a lot of pressure on our postal services. So now they're working from the region, like the regional office in Greensboro is working with the Gates County's offices to make sure that these mail-in ballots, specifically is for mail-in ballots, that they are done and making sure they're reaching their destination in a timely manner.
And I think it's important that what you just shared is shared with the citizenry because we hear a lot of things on the news and sometimes it gets filtered and people don't know what to believe and not to believe. So if there's a plan in place for that, then we ought to make sure that communication gets out and not just from the federal level, but from the county level as far as communication with our citizens. This is Gates County and we got to communicate, but we need to communicate facts and not fears. And if we have a plan at the federal level, and I know I've been seeing that also as far as what's going on with the post office and how they're oppressed or whatever. But we need to make sure that the citizens know we are aware and that we are paying attention and that we're working on their behalf.
Absolutely.
And that is that their vote is counted. If they vote, their vote is counted.
Absolutely.
So you can add that to that draft proposal, what we doing with the proposal.
Okay.
Commissioner Jones, did you have anything you want to add in there, sir?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, Mr. Chair. I am not worried, Clytia, because I know that you're going to do the best that you can with what hand you're dealt. But the issue and part of the reason that we are having this meeting tonight, and it was one of my fellow commissioners, and I'm not sure which one, so I don't want to say a name to get it incorrect. But the COVID-19 is a big issue. And the county is facing a potential right now due to sales tax loss $1 million shortfall. So one of the topics that has came up on the table, which is a very big table right now, is where can money not be spent? $1 million due to potential loss is a lot of money to try to find due to lost potential sales tax. So the statement was made, everything is on the table. Where is wasteful spending? And the statement has been made. Your board, which is all here tonight, makes the determination of early voting sites.
Right.
So does it make sense to spend taxpayer money on extra voting sites when the county is looking at having to possibly raise taxes, furlough county employees, or possible reduction in force? So that's what I think needs to be the most important thing. Of course, with what Commissioner Riddick said, of course, I like that, Commissioner Riddick, is that to take that in mind, because everybody at this meeting is a taxpayer, and none of us want our taxes raised, I would hope. And nobody wants to see any county employees possibly lose their job due to a reduction in force or even a possible furlough across the board. So that is my final comment to the Board of Elections. You guys are mandated to put on the election like Commissioner Freeman just said, but I want a safe election if I was running, but I know that I know that Clytia is going to do that. And I'm saying that to your board, Clytia. But my statement is just be aware that there's a lot of financial issues right now due to COVID-19. So when you're making decisions in regards to budget, all five of us are getting contacted by citizens in regards to spending and excess spending and where people think that money can not be spent. So if you guys were to say there's 7 early voting sites, be aware that that's got to be funded by somebody. So we're going to get phone calls and, there's a lot of tough decisions coming down. And like I said, I don't remember which one of my fellow commissioners brought this up at our meeting ago or a couple of meetings ago, but that's what I will say about that.
Thank you, sir.
By what date would you like the plan from the Board of Elections?
The draft
Yes.
that Dr. Rich talking about, I know we have to prepare for many things. And I know they've got to get their figures together. Do we want to say 2 weeks? Is that awfully
2 weeks,
good? 2 weeks good with Board of Elections? Commissioners seem to be in agreement.
That's right, because we could have it for our next meeting.
So we're talking 2 weeks. Therefore, we would have that Board of Election. We would have that material and those documents, the draft that Dr. Riddick has talked about, before us in time enough to study for the budget consideration.
I believe that's the 9th.
What is that, June the 14th?
I think
June the 9th.
June the 9th, okay.
That's
2 weeks?
And we would love to have that draft and then what it is, but we're aware, as you are, but to say it for everyone's benefit, is that sometimes those figures move around. And therefore, it's a draft, as Dr. Riddick said, and so it may have an eraser on it on some things. So
I would certainly hope that you would keep in mind now that as I said earlier, the legislature was meeting today to discuss particularly the item about the mail-in ballots and what would be the volume of that. Now, if they are making the decision about that today, when that bill comes before them to vote on, we don't know. And so that would have a tremendous impact on what the numbers would be and which way they'd go. I would just hope that we would include that in the discussion.
yes, sir. Roger that, and we understand that, and of course, we understand the legislature and their slow steps this year in being able to agree on things. However, you did tell us something, or you told me something, and fellow commissioners may know it, is that we need 100% of the mail-in ballots, we need 100% of the other ballots. So those won't move much in our mind, since that's something that you need.
And we all know that a draft plan is like most plans, you have assumptions that you feed it. And so that's an assumption sometimes that we assume until we get the facts. So we can put that in that draft plan, or we have it on the ready as far as these assumptions of what the legislators may do if they don't have a decision by then. If so, we just add it to it, and you can call in or send it in, or back and forth until we get it right.
And as we learn new information, we'll just plug it in. Or you will plug it in.
And with that plan, I asked the county manager, and I know Kim would like this as well, details about what the state board of elections has said that they will reimburse. So that we're not looking at this and trying to figure out what's going to be reimbursed by them and what we could use other CARES Act funding for as well.
Okay.
Understandable. Good point, Madam County Manager. With that, do we think we've covered all the issues?
I have a question. I guess that's the question the board, I guess they're scared to ask. But they pressure me on it. So for the past 2 budget requests, they have asked for an increase in their monthly meeting fee from 25 to 50, and they have been denied. And I did ask, could I take that money from somewhere else, like my office supplies? I was willing to cut myself short there so they can get it. If you can shed some light to them and let them know, I guess, why the denial, or you feel like they don't deserve the $50, it will be a great weight lifted off of me.
I'm assuming that weight is going to fall on my shoulders, and I can kind of feel that weight a little bit. But I'll do as a politician might do. One is not avoid it. However, I'll kind of bounce around it. And how I would say is that not only is the budget tight, but also there are all those provisions for budget amendments. So if you see it and then you will present that amendment, we will have an opportunity as a board to take a look at it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Freeman.
We could not hear.
They were all saying thank you, Commissioner Freeman.
Well, thank y'all for being the Board of Education. Thank you for meeting with us and enlightening us. I mean, Board of Elections. Board of Elections. Let me make that right. But thank you for meeting with us and enlightening us on subjects and certainly educated me. I won't speak for the other ones. They're smarter than I am, but thank you.
We were certainly glad to have the opportunity to talk to you, and at any time that you want to hear from us or whatever, just let us know and we'll come forward and address you.
I think, this is Commissioner Riddick, I think before we have the election, it'd be good if we come back together again to see how things are going and what plans are in place, so we can just report out between the 2 boards, so that we make sure that the needs of the election board have been met as mandated, as well as the needs of the citizens in Gates County as far as health and safety and security.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Well put. And I know you know this, but make no mistake, we are a team, and Board of Elections is just as much of a team of the Board of Commissioners as anyone else, and that's what will kind of make all of this go together. And and make mashed potatoes out of it. So,
Okay.
anything else? If not, we'll stand adjourned. So thank you again. Appreciate your involvement and what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.